Dear students, now we will discuss the autonomic nervous system. Our lecture is very important, so please keep your attention with me and we will discuss it very well. The autonomic nervous system, along with the endocrine system, coordinates the regulation and integration of bodily functions. The endocrine system sends signals to target tissues by varying the level of blood-borne hormones. In contrast, the nervous system exerts its influence by the rapid transmission of electrical impulses over nerve fibers that terminate at effector cell or at the organs or at the site where we want to stop action or modulate an action, which specifically respond to the release of neuromediators substances, drugs that produce their primary therapeutic effect by mimicking or altering the function of the autonomic nervous system are called autonomic drug. These autonomic agents act either by stimulating portions of the autonomic nervous system or by blocking the action of autonomic nerves. The the nervous system is divided into two anatomically divisions: the central nervous system, which is composed of the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, which includes a neuron located outside the brain and the spinal cord. That is, any nerves that enters or leave the CNS, as shown in figure 1. The peripheral nervous system is subdivided into the efferent and the afferent divisions. Now, the efferent neurons carry signals away from the brain and spinal cord to the peripheral tissues, and the afferent neurons bring information from the periphery to the CNS. Afferent neurons provide mostly sensory input to modulate the function of the efferent division through reflex arcs of the neural pathway that mediate a reflex action. Please, this presentation of the picture in front of you show the details of the divisions of the nervous system, and as a result of the autonomic nervous system, which is our lecture. The functional division within the nervous system, let us take it as on this way. The efferent portion of the peripheral nervous system is further divided into two major functional subdivisions: the somatic and the autonomic nervous system. We will come to discuss it in detail, as shown in figure 3.1. The somatic efferent neurons are involved in the voluntary control of functions such as contraction of the skeletal muscle, essential for locomotion. The autonomic nervous system conversely regulates the everyday requirement of vital bodily function without the conscious participation of the mind. Because of the involuntary nature of the autonomic nervous system, as well as its functions. It is also known as the visceral, vegetative, or involuntary nervous system. It is composed of efferent neurons that innervate smooth muscle of the viscera, cardiac muscle, vasculature, and the exocrine gland, thereby controlling digestion, cardiac output, blood flow, and glandular secretion. Very easy to know it, please. Anatomy of the autonomic nervous system. Please, this is the basics you should be know very well, so keep your attention and look at, when you hear the lecture, look at the to the right, to this picture and the presentation of the divisions, how it looks, the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system carries nerves impulses from the CNS to the effector organs by way of two types of efferent neurons, the preganglionic neurons and the postganglionic neurons. What this is mean? Now we will come to discuss it. The cell body of the fiber of the first nerve cell, the preganglionic neurons, is located within the CNS. The preganglionic neurons emerge from the brainstem or spinal cord and make a synaptic connection in ganglia. What is ganglia? An aggregation of nerve cells of nerve cell bodies located in the peripheral nervous system. So the ganglia, it's outside in the peripheral nervous system, not within the central nervous system. The ganglia function as relay stations between the preganglionic neurons and the second nerve cell, the postganglionic neurons. The cell body of the postganglionic neurons originates in the ganglion. It is generally non-myelinated and terminate on effector organ, the organ that we want to make the stimuli or the effect, such as smooth muscle or the viscera, cardiac muscle, and the exocrine gland. Let's come to discuss what is the sympathetic neurons. The efferent autonomic nervous system is divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic neuron system, as well as the enteric neuron nervous system, as in figure 1. Anatomically, the sympathetic and parasympathetic neuron originate in the CNS and emerge from two different spinal cord regions. The preganglionic neurons of the sympathetic system come from the thoracic and lumbar region, T1 and L2 of the spinal cord, and they synapse in two cord-like chain of ganglia that run close and in parallel on each side of the spinal cord. The preganglionic neurons are short in comparison to the postganglionic neurons. So the ganglia of the sympathetic neurons, it is located near the spinal cord or near the vertebrae. Now, axons of the postganglionic neurons extend from these ganglia to the tissue that they innervate, and regulate. In most cases, the preganglionic nerve ending of the sympathetic nervous system are highly branched, enabling one a preganglionic neuron to interact with many postganglionic neurons. This arrangement enables this division to activate numerous effector organs at the same time. So it is very easy to know it that the preganglionic nerves it is or neurons enables to make many effects at the same time in the effector organs. So for this reason it is highly branched. It is highly branched. Please concentrate on this term. There is one exception. Please concentrate on this. The adrenal medulla, like the sympathetic ganglia. The adrenal medulla, now I am repeating, like the sympathetic ganglia, received a preganglionic fiber from the sympathetic system, but the adrenal medulla, in response to stimuli by the ganglionic neurotransmitters, the neurotransmitter here is the acetylcholine, which belongs to parasympathetic system. Why? Because most of, now we will come to discuss it, most of the preganglionic neurons, the neurotransmitter that activate the ganglia is the acetylcholine, which in this case in the adrenal gland, the adrenal gland looks like, we name it like the sympathetic ganglia. The adrenal gland will secrete epinephrine as a result of the stimulation by the sympathetic neuron, and the neurotransmitter is acetylcholine, will secrete epinephrine or adrenaline, it is the same nomenclature, and lesser amount of norepinephrine directly into the blood. The parasympathetic neurons, the parasympathetic preganglionic fiber arise from cranial nerve 3, oculomotor, 7 facial, 9 glossopharyngeal, and 10 the vagus, as well as from the sacral region S2 to S4 of the spinal cord, and synapse in ganglia near or in effector organ. Please keep your attention now. Thus, in contrast to the sympathetic system, the preganglionic fiber are long, not like the sympathetic preganglionic fibers, which is short. Here is long. The preganglionic fiber for the parasympathetic neurons are long, and the postganglionic one are short. with the ganglia close to or within the organ innervated. In most instances, there is a one-to-one connection between the preganglionic and postganglionic, enabling a discrete response of this system. Now we come to the enteric neurons. The enteric nervous system is the third division of the autonomic nervous system. It is collection of nerves fiber that innervate the GIT, tract, pancreas, gallbladder, and it constitutes the brain of the gut or the GIT. This system functions independently of the CNS and controls the motility, exocrine and endocrine secretion, and microcirculation of the GI tract. It is modulated by both sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Now we come to the function of the sympathetic nervous system. Although continually active to some degree, for example in maintenance of the tone of vascular beds, the sympathetic divisions has the property of adjusting in response to stressful situation such as trauma, fear, hypoglycemia, cold, and exercise, as you show in the figure 3. Effects of stimulation of the sympathetic division. The effect of sympathetic output is to increase heart rate and blood pressure, to mobilize energy stores of the body, and to increase blood flow to skeletal muscle and the heart, while diverting flow from the skin and internal organs. Sympathetic stimulation results in dilation of the pupils and the pupils of the eye and the bronchioles of the lung. It also affects GI motility and the function of the bladder and sexual organs. Now we come, what is the fight or flight response? The changes experienced by the body during emergencies are referred to as fight or flight response, as in figure 4. These reactions are triggered both by direct sympathetic activation of the effector organ and by stimulation of the adrenal medulla to release epinephrine and a lesser amount of norepinephrine. Hormones released by the adrenal medulla directly enter to the bloodstream and promote responses in effector organs that contain adrenergic receptors. The sympathetic nervous system tends to function as a unit and often one unit, and often discharged as a complete system. For example, during severe exercise or a reaction to fear, the system with its diffuse distribution of postganglionic fibers, it involves in a wide array of physiologic activities. Although it is not essential for survival, it is nevertheless an important system that uh, prepares the body to handle uncertain situation and unexpected stimuli. Function of the parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic divisions is involved within the maintenance of homeostatic or homeostasis within the body. It is required for the life since it maintains essential bodily functions such as digestion and elimination of wastes. The parasympathetic divisions usually acts to oppose or balance the actions of sympathetic divisions and generally predominates the sympathetic system in rest and digest. It is predominant when at rest and digest. Situations unlike the sympathetic system, the parasympathetic system nerve discharges as a complete system. If it did, it would produce massive undesirable and unpleasant symptoms such as involuntary urination and defecation. And instead, parasympathetic fibers innervating specific organs uh, alone, such as the gut, heart, or eye, are activated separately by parasympathetic system, and the system functions to affect these organs individually. Role of the CNS in the control of autonomic function. Although autonomic nervous system is a motor system, it does require sensory input from peripheral structures to provide information on the current state of the body. This feedback is provided by streams of afferent impulse that go to the brain, originating in the viscera and other autonomically innervated structures that travels to integrating centers in the CNS such as the hypothalamus, medulla oblongata, and the spinal cord. These centers respond to the stimuli by sending out efferent reflexes impulses via the autonomic nervous system. Innervation by autonomic nervous system. There is a dual innervation. Most organs in the body are innervated by both divisions of the autonomic nervous system. Thus, vagal parasympathetic innervation slows the heart rate, and the sympathetic innervation increases the heart rate. Despite this dual innervation, one of them, usually predominates in controlling the activity of a given organ. For example, in the heart, the vagus nerve or the parasympathetic is the predominant factor or effector for controlling the rate of the heart rate. This type of antagonism is considered to be dynamic and fine-tuned continually to control homeostatic organs functions. Number 2, organs receiving only sympathetic innervation like some effector organs such as the adrenal medulla, kidney, pilomotor muscles, sweaty glands, which receives innervation only by the sympathetic system. Somatic nervous system. What is this system? This system or the efferent somatic nerve system differs from the autonomic nervous system in that a signal myelinated motor neuron originate in the CNS travel directly to the skeletal muscle without the mediation by ganglia. As noted earlier, the somatic nervous system is under voluntary. Now, the difference, it is voluntary rather than the autonomic nervous system is involuntary. Chemical signaling between cells. There is a chemical signaling between the cells, like in more general process of chemical signaling between cells, there is a neurotransmitters make signals between some cells, like in hormones. Some of the hormones, specialized endocrine cell, secrete hormones into the bloodstream where they travel through the body, exerting their effect on a broadly or far distinguished target cell, like in figure 5. Local mediators. Most cell the body secretes chemical that act locally on cells in the immediate environment. Because these chemical signals are rapidly destroyed or removed, they do not enter the bloodstream and not distributed throughout the body. Histamine and prostaglandins are examples of these mediators. Neurotransmitters. Communication between nerve cells and between nerve cells and effectors organs occur through the release of specific chemical signals, neurotransmitter, from the nerve terminals. This release triggered by the arrival of the action potential at the nerve ending, leading to the depolarization. An increase in the intracellular calcium initiates fusion of the synaptic vesicles with the presynaptic membranes and the release of their content. The neurotransmitters rapidly diffuse across the synaptic cleft between neuron or muscle, between, as we mentioned, neurons, and combine with the specific receptor on the postsynaptic target cell. Membrane receptor or neurotransmitter and most hormone and local mediators are too hydrophilic to penetrate lipid bilayer of target cell plasma membrane. Instead, their signals is mediated by binding to a specific receptor on the cell surface of target organs. Type of a neurotransmitter. There is a many type of a neurotransmitter. Let us concentrate on the what's called epinephrine or adrenaline, acetylcholine, dopamine, serotonin, histamine, glutamate, and GABA-aminobutyric acid are the most commonly involved in the actions of therapeutically useful drugs. Each of these chemical signals bind to a specific family of receptor. Acetylcholine and norepinephrine are the primary chemical signals in the autonomic nervous system, whereas a wide variety of neurotransmitter function in the CNS, but mostly is the acetylcholine and norepinephrine. Acetylcholine, the autonomic nervous system, can be divided into groups based on the type of neurotransmitter release. If transmission is mediated by acetylcholine, the neuron is termed cholinergic. Acetylcholine mediated Acetylcholine mediates the transmission of nerve impulses across the autonomic ganglia in both sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. This is when in the preganglionic. It is the neurotransmitter at the adrenal medulla. Neurotransmitter from the autonomic postganglionic nerves to the effector organs in the parasympathetic system also involved in the release of acetylcholine. So acetylcholine stimulate preganglionic, sympathetic and parasympathetic type of neurons with the ganglia stimulation, but postganglionic it is only stimulate the parasympathetic neurons. And the somatic nerve system transmission at the neuromuscular junction, the junction of nerve fiber and voluntary muscle, also stimulated by acetylcholine. It's the type of cholinergic parasympathetic fibers. Norepinephrine and epinephrine, where norepinephrine and epinephrine are the neurotransmitter, the fiber is termed adrenergic. In the sympathetic system, norepinephrine mediates the transmission of nerve impulses from autonomic postganglionic nerves of the effector organs, as shown in front of you in this presentation. Let us discuss some of the signal transduction in the effector cell. The binding of chemical signals to receptor activates enzyme process within the cell membrane that ultimately result in cell response. We discussed it in the previous lecture, how the neurotransmitter activate the receptors, the types of receptors, and there is a direct effect or there is a series of processes that needs to second messenger to make the effect. Let's come to a membrane receptor affecting ion permeability, ionotropic receptor. Neurotransmitter response are membrane protein that provide a binding site that recognize and responds to neurotransmitter molecules. Some receptors, such as postganglionic nicotinic receptor in the skeletal muscle cell, are directly linked to membrane ion channel. Therefore, binding of the neurotransmitter occur rapidly within fraction of milliseconds and directly affect ion permeability. This type of receptors are known as ionotropic receptor. The second type is the metabotropic receptor. Many receptors are non-directly coupled to ion channels. Rather, the receptor signals its recognition of a bound neurotransmitter by initiating a series of reactions that ultimately result in a specific intracellular response. Second messenger molecules, so named because they uh, here please concentrate on this. They intervene between the original message, the neurotransmitter or hormone, and the ultimate effect of the cell, are part of the cascade of the events that translated neurotransmitter binding into the cellular response. We discussed it in the previous lecture, as we mentioned, usually through the intervention of the G protein. The two most widely recognized second messenger are the adenylyl cyclase system and the calcium phosphatidylinositol system, as in figure 3.8 B and C. The receptors coupled to second messenger system are known as metabotropic receptor, like muscarinic and adrenergic receptor are example of metabotropic receptors. Please look at this presentation. You will find all what we discussed very well. Thank you and good luck.